Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
What if I told you that happiness has never been about your bank account, your relationship, or your success, but about one single decision, the way you choose to think? Because the truth is, happiness isn't found, it's created. And the battlefield isn't out there, it's in here, your mind. I remember sitting in my car one evening, parked outside my office, completely exhausted. On paper, I had everything: career, family, a list of achievements that looked impressive enough to post about. But inside, I was empty. It wasn't sadness, it was this strange, quiet numbness. I kept thinking, when I finally slow down, when I achieve this next goal, then I'll be happy. That night, I just sat there staring at the steering wheel, and I realized I was chasing happiness like it was some finish line. But happiness had been quietly waiting for me every single morning I woke up. In that stillness, I whispered to myself, maybe happiness isn't what I get when life is perfect. Maybe it's what I choose when life isn't. That night changed everything. Happiness doesn't begin in your circumstances, it begins in your mind. We've been taught to believe that joy is something we find out there. After we earn enough, after we fix enough, after we become enough. But the truth is, your outer world is only a reflection of your inner world. What you think, how you interpret, and the stories you tell yourself. Those are the architects of your emotions. Let me put it this way, your mind is a storyteller, and every moment of your life, it's writing a narrative about what's happening to you. The same event can either break you or build you, depending on what story your mind tells. You can see a rejection as proof that you're not enough, or you can see it as redirection, a nudge toward something better. The situation didn't change. The story did. I once worked with a woman who had lost her job after 15 years. She sat across from me, angry and heartbroken. "Everything I worked for is gone," she said. "How can I possibly be happy?" Months later, she returned, her eyes brighter. She told me she'd started painting again, something she hadn't done since she was 20. That loss, the same one that broke her heart, had made space for her to rediscover what she loved. "I thought my happiness was tied to my career," she said. "But it was never there. It was in me all along." That's the power of perception. Happiness doesn't come from controlling everything that happens. It comes from controlling how you see it. Every time something hard happens, your mind will offer you a story. "This isn't fair. I'm not strong enough. I can't handle this." But you get to decide if you believe it. The brain has an incredible ability called neuroplasticity. It literally rewires itself based on repeated thoughts. When you constantly focus on what's wrong, your brain becomes wired for pain and scarcity. But when you start to consciously choose different thoughts, when you practice gratitude, compassion, curiosity, you begin to rewire your mind to see possibility where there used to be fear. Think about that for a second. Your happiness is not a random accident. It's a mental habit. The more you practice seeing life through a lens of grace and meaning, the stronger that muscle grows. So, what if happiness isn't a feeling that appears when everything goes right, but a skill we build when things fall apart? What if your peace depends less on how perfect life is and more on how kind your thoughts are? When you begin to change your internal dialogue, from judgment to acceptance, from fear to understanding, you'll realize something profound. The world outside starts to feel different. Not because it changed, but because you did. And maybe that's what real happiness is, not a destination, but a daily decision to choose a better story, one thought at a time. Gratitude is one of those words that gets thrown around so much that it almost loses its meaning. We hear it in motivational talks, in self-help books, in morning affirmations, be grateful. But when life is heavy, when you're tired or hurt or barely holding on, gratitude can feel like a cruel joke. How can you be thankful when everything seems to be falling apart? That's the thing most people misunderstand. Gratitude isn't about pretending everything is okay. It's not denial or toxic positivity. Gratitude is about choosing to see, really see, what is still good, what is still beautiful, what is still worth holding on to, even in the middle of pain. It's not the absence of struggle, it's the presence of perspective. I remember talking to a man who had just gone through a brutal divorce. He told me, I wake up every morning and my house feels like a stranger's home. The silence is unbearable. For weeks, he couldn't find a single reason to smile. Then one morning, he said he noticed something. The sun was streaming through the kitchen window, landing right on the same corner of the table where his kids used to sit and eat breakfast. He said, "It hurt, but it was beautiful. I realized I could either focus on the fact that the chair was empty or be grateful that I got to fill it with love for so many years." That moment didn't erase his pain, but it softened it. It gave it meaning. That's what gratitude does. It doesn't erase the hard stuff, it gives it context. It shifts your attention from what's missing to what's still present. And that tiny shift changes everything. Neuroscience backs this up. When we practice gratitude consistently, we activate the brain's reward system. The more you look for things to appreciate, the more your brain becomes wired to find them. It's like training a muscle. The more you flex it, the stronger it becomes. But gratitude is also deeply vulnerable. Because when you choose to be grateful, you're admitting that not everything is in your control. You're acknowledging that life gives and takes, and you don't get to decide which comes next. Gratitude requires surrender, the courage to accept life as it is, not just as you want it to be. Some of the happiest people I've ever met aren't the ones who've had the easiest lives. They're the ones who've learned to look around and say, even here, there's something good. They've stopped waiting for big miracles and started noticing the small mercies. The warmth of coffee in their hands, the kindness of a stranger, the laughter that erupts unexpectedly after tears. The truth is, gratitude doesn't make life perfect. It makes it enough. It teaches your heart to rest even when the world feels uncertain. It opens your eyes to joy that was always there, waiting to be seen. So maybe happiness doesn't start when you finally get what you want. Maybe it starts when you pause long enough to appreciate what you already have. Because gratitude doesn't just change your day, it changes your mind. And once your mind shifts, your entire life begins to follow. We spend so much of our lives believing that happiness is something someone else can hand us. We chase it in people, in promotions, in validation. We tell ourselves, once I find the right partner, once I get that dream job, once they finally see my worth, then I'll be happy. But that's the great illusion. The moment we make happiness dependent on something or someone outside of ourselves, we give away the very power that could create it. I once met a young woman who had just ended a long relationship. She told me, "I feel like I've lost myself. I don't even know who I am without him." And I remember saying, gently, "You didn't lose yourself. You just stopped seeing yourself through your own eyes." Because that's what happens when we outsource happiness. We start living as a reflection of other people's approval. We trade our peace for their validation, our self-worth for their attention. And in doing so, we slowly drift away from the one person we're supposed to have the deepest relationship with, ourselves. It's a painful truth, but one we need to face. No one is responsible for your happiness. Not your partner, not your parents, not your boss, not your friends. People can add joy to your life, yes. They can walk beside you, laugh with you, hold your hand through storms, but they cannot be the source of your light. That's your job. When you build your happiness around something external, you're setting yourself up for instability, because everything outside of you can change. People leave, jobs end, life shifts. But when your happiness comes from within, from the quiet confidence of knowing who you are, it becomes unshakable. It's not something that can be taken away because it's not built on conditions. There's a quiet kind of power that comes from saying, I am responsible for how I feel. It's not about blame, it's about freedom. When you stop waiting for someone to make you feel worthy or loved, you open the door to a deeper kind of peace. You realize that you can enjoy people without depending on them to fill the empty spaces within you. One of the most liberating realizations in life is that you can be whole even when something is missing. You can be content even when not everything is perfect. Because happiness isn't about having everything. It's about being aligned with yourself. It's about honoring your own boundaries, living in integrity with your values, and giving yourself permission to feel joy without guilt or permission. When you reclaim that power, something beautiful happens. Your relationships get healthier. You stop clinging and you start connecting. You stop demanding from others what you can only give yourself. Peace, validation, self-worth. And you start showing up as someone who loves freely, not fearfully. The moment you stop outsourcing happiness is the moment you realize you were never incomplete. You were just waiting for your own heart to come home. And that's the kind of happiness no one can take from you. We grow up believing that happiness means the absence of pain, that joy and sorrow cannot coexist. But the truth is, real happiness is not the denial of pain. It's the ability to feel it fully without letting it define you. We live in a world that tells us to stay positive, to move on, to cheer up. But sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is to not be okay for a little while. To sit with your sadness, your grief, your anger, and say, "You're allowed to be here too." I remember talking with a woman who had recently lost her father. She said, "I don't understand how people can tell me to focus on the good memories. Every time I do, it hurts even more." And I told her, of course it does. Because grief is love that has nowhere left to go. When we lose someone or something that mattered to us, the pain we feel is not weakness. It's proof that we care deeply. To love is to risk heartbreak. To be alive is to risk pain. But that's also what makes joy so breathtakingly real. You cannot selectively numb emotions. You can't shut out grief and still expect to feel gratitude. You can't avoid disappointment and still know what pride feels like. When we try to protect ourselves from the darker emotions, we end up building walls that block out the light too. Vulnerability, allowing yourself to be seen, to feel, to hurt, isn't a flaw. It's the birthplace of joy, creativity, belonging, and love. There's a misconception that strong people don't cry, that resilient people don't break. But strength isn't about how well you hide your pain. It's about how bravely you face it. When you give yourself permission to feel, you give your soul room to breathe. And in that space, healing begins. Because pain doesn't destroy us. What destroys us is pretending it's not there. Sometimes happiness hides in unexpected places. In the tears you cry after holding them in too long, in the conversation that finally allows you to be honest, in the moment you admit, "This is hard, but I'm still here." There's something sacred about allowing yourself to feel every color of your emotional spectrum. It's like giving your heart permission to be human again. And here's the paradox: the more you embrace your pain, the more space you create for joy. When you stop running from your emotions, they stop chasing you. You begin to understand that happiness isn't a state of constant euphoria. It's a deep, grounded peace that comes from living authentically, from letting yourself be real. So, the next time you feel broken, remember this: you are not broken, you are breaking open. Every tear, every achy, every moment of vulnerability is expanding your capacity to feel, to love, to connect. Happiness isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about learning to dance in the rain, knowing that both sunshine and thunder are part of the same sky. We spend so much of our lives chasing perfection. The perfect job, the perfect body, the perfect relationship, believing that if we just get everything right, happiness will magically appear. But here's the hard truth: perfection is a moving target. It shifts every time you glance at it. The more we chase it, the more elusive it becomes. And in the meantime, life keeps passing us by, moment by moment, unnoticed. I once met a woman who told me, "I can't enjoy anything until everything is perfect. My house, my schedule, my work, everything has to be just right." She was exhausted, living in a constant state of tension, waiting for an imaginary finish line that would never come. And I gently reminded her, life doesn't wait for perfection. It only waits for presence. A presence, the simple act of being here fully, right now, is where happiness lies. It's in the laughter that bubbles up during an ordinary conversation, in the smell of rain on dry earth, in the quiet pause between a heartbeat and the next. It doesn't require anything more than your awareness, your willingness to see what's already in front of you. And yet, we overlook it because our minds are busy running ahead, planning, fixing, and judging. Choosing presence over perfection is a radical act of self-kindness. It's saying, I don't have to have it all figured out to be enough. I don't have to wait for life to be flawless to allow joy. It requires courage because it goes against everything we've been taught about achievement and control. But when we give ourselves permission to be present, we also give ourselves permission to experience life fully, including its imperfections. There's a story I often return to: a father teaching his young daughter to ride a bike. She falls repeatedly, scrapes her knees, cries, and wants to quit. But he doesn't tell her to be perfect. He simply holds the bike steady, encourages her to try again, and celebrates every small success along the way. In those moments, she isn't worried about falling perfectly or riding flawlessly. She's simply riding. And in that simple act of presence, she experiences joy, the exhilaration of balance, the wind on her face, the pride in trying. That's what life is asking of us: to ride, to show up, to be fully here even when we're imperfect. When you embrace presence, you also embrace connection. You start to notice the people around you, the subtle expressions on their faces, the words unsaid between them. You stop living in your head and start living in your heart. And that's where happiness grows. Not in perfection, not in the checklist, but in these small, unpolished moments that make life alive. The irony is that perfection often keeps us from experiencing what we want most. The desire for flawlessness keeps our hearts closed, our laughter contained, our gratitude muted. Presence, on the other hand, opens us fully to life, to love, to wonder. It teaches us that being here, right now, is enough. So the next time you feel the pressure to get it right, take a breath and remember life doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for you. Just you. Fully present, fully human, fully alive. And when you choose that, you choose happiness, not someday, not when everything is perfect, but here, now, in this very moment. So here's my challenge for you. For the next 24 hours, stop chasing happiness. Instead, create it. Choose thoughts that give life. Choose gratitude over comparison. Choose presence over perfection. Because happiness isn't hiding from you. It's not something you need to earn, achieve, or prove. It's been waiting for you to look inward and say, I already have enough to be happy right now. And maybe, just maybe, when you stop searching for happiness, you'll finally realize it's been inside you all along.